Hi, EDU 145. At this point, you should have submitted part 1 of your child assessment project. So we are moving on to part 3, where we take a look and analyze the information you collected from the family interview and the observations you conducted. So let's take a look at what the document for part 3 says. Part 3 is the summary report and goals. So there are 2 parts to part 3. I know that sounds silly, but part 3, the first part is creating a developmental summary report. So in your developmental summary report, you need to address all 4 developmental domains that you collected observation information about and artifacts. You're going to discuss each domain and where you see the child in that developmental domain. I want to show you a quick example. This example happens to be from EDU 144, but the format and content of the report would be the same for both EDU 144 and EDU 145. So in the developmental summary report, this student kind of introduced and talked about the developmental domains that she would be discussing, and then she talked about each domain and the evidence that she gathered related to each domain. Specifically, what were things that were observed related to that domain and how she saw the child's development. So you will see she talks about cognitive development. She talks about what she saw related to cognitive development. She talks about things that she learned from the family interview. She talks about the different developmental domains that related to family interview information. But very systematically, she goes through all 4 developmental domains, talks about and thinks about what was observed and what conclusions she could draw from each of those developmental domains. She, in the end, does go ahead and address the goals, the next steps for this child. However, you guys need to do that in a separate document, and let me show you that document next. So we're moving on to your 4 goals and 1 activity for each goal, and all of this connects back to North Carolina Foundations for Early Learning and Development. So let's take a look at a document that I created to help you think about how you would move from the information you gathered in part 2 to creating goals for a child in part 3. So I'm going to pull that document over and get it sized correctly so that we can see it. So this is just a sample observation collected during part 2 for a child between the ages of 3 and 5. The child's initials are LS. I am the observer. So this is an anecdotal note and artifact that I have collected. During center time, LS painted using the easel and paints. Pretty simple note, pretty simple observation. So then I took that note and I went to North Carolina Foundations and I chose, I connected it to the goal, children develop small muscle control and hand-eye coordination to manipulate objects and work with tools. And I looked even further into NC Foundations and found the developmental indicator that I specifically saw displayed in this observation. And that was HDP 5L, uses tools that require strength, coordination, and dexterity of small muscles. So I'm going to take you over to NC Foundations now to show you how to look at it in this much detail. So bear with me for just a moment. Here in the NC Foundations booklet that you all have access to and that you're all using to align your notes with, I have keyed in on this specific goal that I just showed you the observation and artifact for. Children develop small muscle control. We are working with a 3 to 5 year old, so I might start here in the older toddler range just in case they were a little delayed or just hadn't moved to the preschool year, to the preschool level yet. But I saw this observation to demonstrate uses tools that require strength, control, and dexterity of small muscles. And it lists some tools, and it doesn't have a paintbrush, but a paintbrush would be used similarly to crayons and markers. So this is the current level of development for this child based on the observations that I made, and that's where I came up with HPD 5L. So that is what you were doing in part 2. So in part 3, when you think about your goals and activities, you have to take it a step further, okay? So in order to take a current developmental level and create a goal that will support development, we have to look down the continuum of development, okay? So in the younger preschool years, if a child is using tools that require strength, control, and dexterity of small muscles, then if I'm thinking about helping them and supporting them develop, I'm going to choose something in the older preschool category to support that higher level development. And so if you remember when you were working through NC Foundations that these developmental indicators generally read across. So this one builds to this one, and then an older toddler builds here to here to here. Same here. Transfers objects, uses hands and eyes together, uses hands and eyes together with a moderate degree of control, and it moves on. So moves on forward to different developmental levels. So HPD 5L is a lower level skill but builds to HPD 5O. So for part 3, I want to support the child in moving to this level. So my goal, let me go back to my example. Moving on to part 3 here, my goal for health and physical development is still that same general goal, but I have identified the indicator HPDO uses tools that require strength, dexterity of small muscles with a moderate degree of control. So that is the higher level goal than what I observed during the observation period of this project. So it's going to support, that indicator is going to support the child in developing to the next level in that skill. So the next thing you have to do, you have to write a goal, and then you have to come up with an activity that would support growth towards that goal. So my activity is, on the playground, I will add white easel paper on the fence and spray bottles with different color water so that LS can paint with the spray bottles. Using spray bottles will build hand muscle strength, okay? Notice, let me pop back over to NC Foundations. There's nothing hidden here. You need to use your resources. I quite frankly took my activity directly from this goal. You'll see that some of the things listed that a child might use at that higher level are spray bottles and hole punchers. So I came up with a developmentally appropriate activity that would support the child in developing that higher level strength and dexterity of their small muscles. So that is what we are that's what I'm looking for you to do as you create your goals and activities for part 3. You need to write your developmental summary, and then you need to come up with goals and activities that move the child from their current level of functioning, current level of development to the next, and you have to have a goal from each domain. The goal I shared is from the physical domain. You will need a goal from cognitive, language development and communication, as well as social and emotional. So I will be looking specifically for you utilizing your notes and exactly where the child was in the notes that you took and how you'll move them to the next level. You only do 4 goals. Remember, you should have at least 12 pieces of evidence, 8 if you combined your anecdotal note with an artifact. But so you don't have to have a goal for every note you took. You have to go back and look at the evidence that you collected and make a decision about where you want to make the goal. I hope this video has been helpful. Please reach out if you have questions. I'm available to meet with you and help you work through this and talk through it. Hope you have a great day.